Hello, my name is Mallory. You're watching GCTV. I'm here with the CEO of the United Arc, Fred Warren. Thanks for coming on today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah. What kinds of support and services does the ARC provide for people who are disabled?
A lot. So I think probably the most common support and service program that we provide is helping people, supporting people who are living independently in their own home, away from their families or things like that, and getting through all the day-to-day things from what they need to tackle in life. It might just be going to the grocery store, or going to the doctor's appointment, or getting all their paperwork ready for when they're going to the doctors, or even sometimes helping them pay their bills. And then we have another program which is what we can call support services, and that's where we help and support individuals who are living with their families or in a residential home, and we make sure that the individuals and their families have the different resources that they need to be able to have the opportunity to pursue the things that they want to do in life. The ultimate goal is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to maximize their independence and achieve the goals and have the fullest expression of their lives. And I think that's one of the things that I'm most proud of for our organization, is that making sure that everybody has that chance regardless of what their background might be.
Can you tell me about the United Arc Company?
So the United Arc is actually a really amazing organization. It's historic even, and that's not an exaggeration. In 1951, so long time ago, even before I was born, I'm pretty old, but that's even before I was born, there was a woman, a mom, who lived in Greenfield, and she had two sons who had an intellectual disability. And at the time, it was very normal for anybody who had a disability to be sent to an institution. Belchertown State School was one in our area. And this mom said, absolutely not. I want my sons to continue to live with me, and so we're going to do whatever we have to do to make sure that they stay in our home. But she was wondering how many other families in the area were in the same situation. So then she did an ad in the paper, the local paper, the Greenfield Recorder, but at the time it was Greenfield Recorder Gazette, and found that there was a bunch of other families who had children who had an intellectual disability that were with them at home. And so they started to say, hey, listen, we want the same opportunities for our kids, for them to be able to have social interactions and friends and get out and play and do all these things. And so these families started to get together every once in a while, so the families and the kids could all play together. And that's really where it started. The entire organization started with a mom who was trying to do the best that she could for her own children. And so since then, it's built up and built up. And some of those families that were kind of starting the organization, their kids got older, and so they became adults, and they said, okay, well, how are we going to help our kids who are now adults? And so that's kind of what built to this point where the United Arc is what it is now, where it's an organization that supports people and families living with intellectual and developmental disabilities throughout their lifespan. But it really started with kids. And the United Arc is actually the oldest ARC chapter in the state of Massachusetts. There's 16 other chapters currently, and there's 560 ARC chapters throughout the country. And the United Arc here in Turners Falls, right in our area, is one of the oldest ones in the entire country. So it's kind of been a trailblazer. It's changed a lot of things, and the ARC as a whole, as a group, advocates to make sure that people living with disabilities are given the same opportunities as anybody else, and I think that it's a really amazing organization.
How long has it been around?
1951 it started.
Oh.
So actually 2026, like a year and a half away, will be the 75th anniversary. And so we're hoping to do something really big in our community and try to get as many people excited and sharing in that event, just to kind of realize like the positive impact that the United Arc, but all the staff members who work at the United Arc and all the individuals that are supported from the United Arc, you know, they've all done such amazing things in our community, and that it would be awesome for everybody to get a chance to kind of just say hi.
How long have you worked at the company?
I started in 2019. I started as the HR manager, and I was just trying to make sure that the staff there knew how awesome that they were, and that there was somebody in the management team that knew that they were awesome. And then in 2021, I got the opportunity to move up and become the CEO, like the big boss. Sounds really official, but kind of weird. But so I've been there since 2019, so 5 years.
What does your daily life look like at the job?
Yes, so I think the biggest thing about my job at the ARC, and I think for anyone in kind of a leadership position at any of these agencies, a big thing is the second that I walk in the door, I need to make sure that I have a really good attitude and try to have a smile. It doesn't matter what happened, but the weird thing about being kind of like the head honcho or like the person who's at the top is if I'm in a really bad mood, then it can really kind of make it tough for everybody else to have a good day. And that is unfortunate, but that's just kind of the reality of the world. So it's really important that I walk in the door and, you know, let people know how excited I am to be there, because I truly am. And so, you know, making sure that you set the right tone for everybody in the building. Come on in, check my emails, see if there's been any emergencies or anything like that, you know, that I didn't know about, anything that I got to take care of or get into right away. And then usually check in with our HR person to see if there's been any staff issues or anything like that. So kind of the first order of business each day is to look for anything that's like an emergency for staff or for individuals. And then depending on what things I have in place, I'm trying to, it's usually a lot of planning. You know, like we have a big meeting on Wednesday, and so for the last couple of weeks been putting everything in place to make sure that meeting goes really well. And then there's another big meeting for all of the agencies in Franklin County next week. So putting all that stuff together, making sure that you know, any communication that needs to go out to people outside of our office, that we keep an eye on that. And then working to try to help our leaders, the other leaders in the organization, make sure that they're prepared for what might come down the road. You know, a lot of planning, a lot of communication, and then I have to talk to our board of directors. We have a group of 10 people from the community who are kind enough to volunteer their time and help provide some insight and thoughts, and to make sure that we're doing things the right way, and that we're going to make sure that the United Arc is around for many years to come.
Does being the CEO affect your personal life?
I'm good about being able to realize the difference between work and home. So like I'll be driving home, and there's usually there's a sign on the side of the road that, because I drive home pretty much the same way every day. And when I see that sign, it's time to stop thinking about work and time to start thinking about it. So I try to make sure that I have some way to remind myself that work is done, and now it's time to be the best husband and best dad that I could possibly be. So I've tried to make sure that work never changes that, because I think that that's important. But so I don't think it does.
How do you manage work-life balance?
Well, partly, like I said, you have to be able to make sure that mentally you can say, hey, listen, okay, I'm you know, going to focus on the things that are really important to me from my home life, right? Like always wanting to be available and supportive and there for my wife and my two children. So like, whether that be, coaching sports teams, or whether that be going to the movies or going on a hike, or, however I can be involved in the lives of my wife and children, I'm going to do that the best that I can, because that's what I really enjoy. So that really kind of helps keep me grounded, because when I'm doing that stuff, I'm not thinking about work. I'm not worrying about work. I can go, I have a cell phone, so if there's an emergency, people can call me. They have my cell number. So I can feel comfortable that I'm not missing anything, I'm not ignoring anything, but at the same time, I'm allowed to just be able to have that time. And I think that's important for anybody in any job. I've had jobs in the past where they were very, very demanding, not just while you're at work, but even when you're at home. And those ones were really hard to separate from, but it still could be done. As I mentioned, that importance of it. But that work-life balance is something that I preach. It's really important to me. It's something that we've worked to make sure everybody, all of our managers, value at the United Arc. So as an employer, we want to make sure we set the tone for that. So I think it's really important.
Did you go through any training to get to your position?
I went through a lot of leadership training in the company I worked for before. I worked there for 15 years and got to move up through the levels of the organization to the corporation. And in doing so, they gave me a lot of leadership training. And one thing that's true is there's a saying, it's a little bit confusing, but the saying is that leadership is leadership, meaning that it doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit organization or like a big company or a little company. It could be the market down the road, or it could be, Walmart or Target. Like wherever you're working, being a leader has a lot of the same requirements. You have to kind of need some of this. So getting training in a different environment, I've been able to use that in my role at the United Arc. And then I got some support. As I mentioned, there's 16 other ARC chapters in the state. And so there's a lot of people that have been doing this job for a long, long time. And so I met with them, I learned from them. And so I tried to make sure that I had as much information as possible to do a good job, because if I mess up, it's a bad thing.
What brought you to your job at the ARC?
Well, the job that I was working for before, it was a big company that I was working for, and there was a couple things that had happened where I realized that that big company was worried about one thing and one thing only, which was making a lot of money, which is, part of society. I get that, and that works for some people, but I didn't feel like that was enough. I wanted to make sure that I was trying to hopefully have a positive impact on the place that I lived. And so I decided to look for another job, and then that's what led me to the opportunity at the ARC, because I really wanted to get into human resources and be able to support individuals. And so it was really wanting to have a positive value in the community that I live in. That's what led me to work for the United Arc.
Did you expect to become a CEO when you began your career?
Absolutely not. Like if you asked me like a long time ago, you could ask me even 5 or 6 years ago, are you going to be a CEO of a nonprofit? And I would have told you that's crazy talk. It was not something I expected. And the funny thing is, talking to a lot of the people who are in leadership roles at some of the nonprofits that are in our area, there's a lot of them who didn't think that that was where they would end up. But just by a course of fate or by chance. But I think that from everyone I've talked to, the opportunity to help our agencies and help the people who work there and help the individuals that are supported by the agency, I think we all love it. And I'm thankful that I'm in this role and I have this opportunity. But no, I never thought that I would be a CEO.
Have you always worked with people with disabilities?
No, it wasn't until I came to the United Arc that I had that opportunity. Had done some volunteering, some small things here and there in the past, and always kind of enjoyed those opportunities. But this was really the first chance that I had to indirectly, help support individuals with disabilities.
What drew you to this work?
It kind of goes to that part that I was mentioning, where like that wanting to be able to do something that was making the community a better place.
Oh, okay.
And so when I was working for that big company and it was just about money, there wasn't really an interest in the people who worked there. And it just wasn't a very good feeling to know that, okay, we're not going to help this person out. We had, there was a employee, someone that I worked with, and their apartment burnt down one day. And thankfully, she was at work and her kids were at school, and so nobody was injured. But they lost everything. And the company that I worked for, it's a national company. It made billions of dollars every year. And I had reached out as a manager, I had reached out to our home office and said, kind of spelled everything out. This person had this horrible situation. Can we donate like a $500 gift card to her so that way maybe she could get some clothes for her children, and because they lost everything. And I was told that they didn't have the money to do that, which quite honestly I knew was a joke. They made billions of dollars with a B. And so that was specifically the instance that really kind of put me on the road to finding a different place to work. And again, so having that opportunity to be supportive of individuals, living with disabilities, but be supportive of the staff members and try to set a different tone. So that way when somebody does have a challenge or an issue or needs some help getting through a speed bump in life, I want to know that the place that I work for is willing to help people and not just ignore people who need a little bit of support.
What is the biggest challenge of your line of work?
The hardest piece, honestly, is just the financial piece, because the way most nonprofits work, but I'll speak specifically to the United Arc, is that most of the money that's used to, pay staff salaries and cover the utility costs and using a vehicle, everything that it takes to kind of make the organization run, that money comes from contracts with the state of Massachusetts. And those contracts have a set dollar amount that they'll pay for each of the contracts. And so since that dollar amount is set, it limits what we can and can't do in terms of this is how much we can pay people and this is what we can do here, and hey, we could go have a pizza party, or
okay.
it's that stuff is all really challenging to make all of that stuff work and still make sure that we haven't spent more money than we took in at the end of the year. So for nonprofits, it's really that management of the fiscal stuff to make sure that the agency will be around forever.
What is the most rewarding part of your work?
Getting to sit down with you today is a great example of that. Getting to see, some of the individuals that we support that work at Big Y, getting to say hi to them, seeing people smile, getting to have conversations with staff members when they're talking about feeling better about the place that we work at. Just seeing people feel more confident about themselves and know that they could do anything that they want to do, really feeling like I have even the smallest little part in helping people find that confidence and find those smiles and find that happiness, that is, without question, that's the best part of my job.
Do you have any plans for the future of your career?
I'm hoping that I can be at the United Arc for as long as possible. And that's, that's an aspiration because, again, it allows me to have a positive impact on our community. And it also means that I'm doing a good enough job for people to want me to stay. So that's a good thing, too. That's my hope. I guess that's my aspiration.
Do you have any advice for people who want to go into your line of work?
There's a lot of times for people when they're trying to figure out what they want to do, where sometimes they feel like they're stuck because of money. Like, I have to make this much money at my job to do these things. And I've seen a lot of people who took higher paying jobs and they really weren't happy. And I can understand why they felt they had to do that. But in the end, it has too much of a negative impact on the rest of their lives that, finding a way to earn a little bit less with your job but have a positive impact on the world, it sounds crazy, quite honestly. It sounds a little bit idealistic or utopian, but it really is that there's a truth to that. So somebody looking to get into a nonprofit world, trying to find the ways that they can be comfortable or happy with a lifestyle that maybe you don't have a $60,000 car. That's one of the things, you're going to be buying a car that might be used or one that you got a really good deal on. There's some of those things that you have to be okay deciding about in terms of the way that you're going to live life, to be happy. So that's one thing that I would advise anybody who's going into that. But I also think that people should know that anyone going into to work for a nonprofit human service agency, that they're most likely a compassionate and caring human being. And that is the most important thing for any of the people that I work with. If there's an aspiration to get to the CEO role eventually down the line, then the last piece that someone would need to have is an ability to say, okay, this is the business or the work side of things, and then this is the human services side of things. I need to work in both of those and be able to separate those two in a way that is to the greater good of the organization. So a little bit complicated, but I would say that those three general aspects would be important things for anybody to have.
Does any of the skills you use translate to your personal life?
Yeah, some. I had mentioned that. When I walk in the door at the office, I have to try to be, in a good mood, right? Because it's just an unfortunate thing about the workplace. Like, the boss's attitude can sometimes be one that affects everybody else, right? But at home, everybody in our family has that ability. right? So if I walked in and was upset about something and I get to my house, then just how I interact with my kids or my wife, like then they could get upset because I was in a bad mood or I was grumpy, you know. So I have realized that that notion of being able to work through your emotions and make sure you walk in the door and have a really positive attitude about things, that's a really helpful piece. I've also learned to assume positive intentions. So through my job, giving people the benefit of the doubt. If I don't understand why somebody did something, my first instinct is to still assume that they had a positive intention to it. And so I use that at home a lot too. But just those understanding things, being there for people. I think the one thing that I'm thankful for is that I've just always been able to just kind of work through some of the tough times. Always see the humor in things. Like a sense of humor is always important in anything that you do. I think all those things kind of just like the way that you approach life, it doesn't necessarily have to be different at work or at home if you find the right place to work.
Do you have anything else you would like to say to GCTV's audience?
Well, first and foremost, thanks for watching and listening. And I hope you're watching all the shows that are on here. But I just think that the one thing about this area that I've come to fully understand and realize now, or not maybe fully understand, but started to understand more, is that this is a really awesome area that we get to live in. And yeah, there's some things that could be better, and they're going to get there. But I think that there's a lot of amazing people who live in this area, who want to try to do amazing things, who want to try to make Greenfield and the surrounding area the best that it can be. And I think that it's nice too because it's not too big, so somebody could see you walking down the sidewalk and feel comfortable saying like, "Hi, how are you?" Right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. We get to know each other because it is a smaller community, but it still has a lot of different things to make it kind of give it like a bigger community feel. So I think it's a really special area that we get to live in, and so I'm just thankful that I get to be a part of it.
That's good. Well, thank you for your time.
Well, thanks again for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem. And thanks for watching GCTV. See you next time.